This world is at a tremble with its strength and mighty power. They're sending up to heaven to get the brimstone fire. Take warning, my dear brother, be careful how you plan. You're working with the power of God's own holy hand. Atomic power was given by the mighty hand.
1945, August 6th. The world sat in awe of the horrors brought by the atomic bombs, Fat Man and Little Boy, the proverbial Grim Reapers of Japan, bombs of 20 and 15 kilotons respectively. They only took seconds to reduce the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to mere ashes, and only days more to bring the Empire of Japan to its knees. Flash forward only 2 years more, 1947, the arms race between the United States of America and the giant to the east, the Soviet Union, kicked full into swing. Tensions high from the continuous spread of communism and the threats of another conflict pitted the two nations against each other. And thus the Cold War had begun. The conflicts that follow both changed our approach to the Red Power as much as they shaped the way we fought wars. The Cold War was a quiet, non-armed war of intel and subterfuge, unprecedented at the time. Fueled by possible nuclear conflict, the Americas casted a distasteful gaze upon the Soviet Union and their spread of communism. The Soviet Party had several targets in Asia that they had plans to spread to, one of which was a previously Japanese-occupied Korea, where they had installed a puppet leader, a Soviet-trained Kim Il-sung, while within the same country, the UN backed another leader, Syngman Rhee. Syngman Rhee took control over the far more liberal South with a UN-funded election, and began training a barely passable Korean army, though there was a nearby American platoon defending Japan at the time. The Soviet-backed Kim Il-sung quickly took over the Communist North and amassed a joint Communist Korean and Chinese army, which was far superior to the almost non-existent South Korean army. The country was also split in half for administrative reasons between the North and the South, along the latitude 38 degrees, which was known as the 38th parallel. During the time of this conflict, it coined a famous term that led to an iconic belief, the domino theory, which later was the cause of another major conflict in Asia, and affected many of the ways we dealt with the Red Threat. It was birthed by President Harry Truman, the president at the time of the war. He served as president from 1945 through 1953. He said during an address, "If we let Korea down, the Soviets will keep right on going and swallow up one place after another." The beginning of the Korean War, otherwise known as the Forgotten War, started with a swift attack on the South from the Red North. Later, it was found out that this attack was done with the express permission from the leader of the USSR, Joseph Stalin. This led to the South Korean army being pushed into the border of the city Busan. In response to this, the U.S. Army occupying Japan was pulled in to support the South Korean effort. This, along with aid coming from the mainland, the democratic forces pushed back the communists north to the Yalu River, bordering China. This was until the Chinese powers volunteered 400,000 troops, which led to the South once again falling back to the 38th parallel. This led to a brutal and long 2-year stalemate between the two forces from 1951 to 1953. In the end, the war was put into indefinite hold by an armistice agreement broached by the leaders of each side and signed on the 27th of July, 1953. An armistice is an agreement to stop conflict for a period of time. It can also be seen as an armed peace. The war has yet to officially end and continues on today with great tension between the DMZ in the middle of the split country. A DMZ, or demilitarized zone, is a space in which no military powers are allowed to move through. The DMZ held between the two is always armed to the teeth and always ready for conflict, in spite of its name. Furthermore, any unrecognized item or flying object is believed to be highly dangerous, proving just how much distrust each side holds for each other. And due to both the high tensions between the two and the length of time that it has gone on, there has been a mandatory draft for both sides, which continues to this very day. Though throughout the years since the armistice, Kim Il-sung has on multiple occasions tried to restart the war, most notably in the 1970s after the Vietnam War. And such was the first true proxy war of the Cold War. This was further exacerbated by the presence of both major parties and only led to an increased amount of tension between the Soviet and US powers. This important war also set the stage for a much more recognizable war in the south of Asia, the Vietnam War. In reality, the Korean War was a true start to the Cold War between the US and the Great Red Army. I'd yell so loud old Stalin could hear me all the way.